They are accustomed to putting pressure on others, raising their voices and demanding special treatment, convinced that the rules do not work for them. In each of these stories, people tried to control the situation by shouting, threatening, or publicly humiliating. But the reality turned out to be simpler and harsher. It only takes a few minutes for such behavior to backfire. These are 7 cases of instant karma, where the consequences came faster than the apology. Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, Texas, August 2018. The morning terminal was operating in a familiar rhythm, where every minute counted and any delay automatically became the passenger's problem, not the system's. Lauren Miller, 47, approached the check-in counter after boarding had closed, but she acted as if the rules only existed for others. She worked in sales and was used to getting her way by pressure, so she immediately refused to accept the employee's answer, who calmly informed her that the flight was preparing to depart and that an exception could not be made. Lauren raised her voice, began listing her statuses, accusing the staff of incompetence, and repeating that she had to be allowed through. The queue behind her stopped, people started turning around, but the employee acted strictly according to instructions, not responding to provocations. Lauren then pulled out her phone and started filming, commenting on every word the employee said, calling the situation discrimination and threatening to complain to management. She demanded a manager, convinced that public pressure would work. When the supervisor arrived, he confirmed the refusal in the same calm tone, citing safety rules and timing. Surveillance cameras recorded the time of her arrival, the course of the conflict, and the behavior of the staff. Lauren didn't stop, kept filming, promised to make this story public, and blocked the counter for almost 10 minutes until security asked her to leave. The same day, the video was posted on social media, but the reaction was not what she expected. Users drew attention to the timestamps, the calm behavior of the employees, and the aggressive tone of Lauren herself. The airline released a short statement confirming the facts and reminding her of the rules, after which Lauren received an official notice of a ban on using the carrier's services. The consequences were not limited to the airport. Her employer, having seen the video and the wave of negative reactions, called her in for a conversation and decided to terminate her contract, explaining it as a reputational risk to the company. For Lauren, this was an unexpected ending to a conflict that she thought was a petty quarrel. No one was killed in this story, but a few minutes of yelling turned into a loss of trust, access to services, and work. The system she tried to force through with pressure simply worked as it was intended. A fitness club in the suburbs of Newark, New Jersey, February 2020. The evening room was filled with people who came here after work to spend an hour without phones and stress. A group workout was scheduled with music, the volume of which complied with the club's internal rules and did not exceed the permissible limits. Melanie Ross, 42, came here almost every day, but not to work out. She considered herself a regular customer and behaved as if she had the right to control others. Before the class even started, Melanie approached the administrator and demanded that the sound be turned down immediately, saying that it was disturbing her workout and that the class should be canceled. When the administrator calmly explained that the classes were approved and the noise level was in compliance with the rules, Melanie began to speak louder, attracting the attention of the visitors. She accused the staff of being unprofessional, repeated that she was paying money and that her complaints were being ignored on purpose. A few minutes later, she pulled out her phone and said she was calling the police because of a violation of public order. The call was made defiantly in front of other clients, with comments that the club was breaking the law. The training was temporarily stopped, and people stood by, waiting to see how it would end. When the officers arrived, the situation quickly lost its emotional heat. The police checked the documents, listened to both sides, and measured the noise level. No violations were found. Instead, it turned out that it was not the first time Melanie had created conflicts, had recorded previous incidents, and had received repeated verbal warnings from the administration. The club manager provided camera footage showing her provoking quarrels, approaching other customers, and interfering with classes. After a short conversation, the officers explained to Melanie that there were no grounds for a complaint, and that her behavior could be considered a violation of the club's internal rules. The next day, she received an official letter canceling her membership without compensation. Her access to the club network, which included this gym, was also blocked. This came as a surprise to Melanie. She believed that calling the police would force the administration to meet her halfway, but she got the opposite result. An ordinary evening at the gym turned into an example of how an attempt to control a space by shouting and threatening ends in a complete loss of privileges. There was no tragedy or physical harm here, but there was instant karma. The system worked against someone who tried to use it to their advantage. A coffee shop at the intersection of two busy streets in downtown Seattle, Washington, October 2019. The establishment was operating as usual, serving a stream of people who came in for coffee before work or during short breaks. Sarah King, 39, arrived at the coffee shop around 8 in the morning when the line stretched almost to the door. She already looked irritated before she even got to the cash register, sighing several times and commenting on the speed of service. After ordering a drink with an alternative milk and a few clarifications, Sarah went to the waiting area, watching the barista closely. When the drink was ready, she took a sip, stopped, and loudly declared that the taste was completely ruined. Without addressing the staff directly, she began to comment on it to others, creating a sense of public condemnation. The barista offered to redo the drink or refund her money, but Sarah refused, saying it wasn't about the coffee, but about the principle. She pulled out her phone and began filming a video, accusing the employee of deliberately spoiling the order and disrespecting customers. She demanded a manager, insisting on a free drink and compensation for the ruined morning. The manager showed up in a few minutes and listened to the complaint without interrupting. He offered a standard solution to the conflict, but at the same time asked to check the surveillance footage that recorded the preparation area and the waiting area. While the video was loading, Sarah continued to comment on the situation, telling the camera that such establishments need to be exposed. When the manager showed her a fragment of the recording, she could see how she opened the lid, added sugar from her packet to the glass, stirred it several times, and then closed the lid tightly. It was after this that she took a sip and began to complain about the taste. The recording left no room for interpretation. The coffee shop became quiet, and several customers standing nearby also saw the screen. Sarah tried to say that the video was taken out of context, but the manager had already made his decision. She was denied any compensation and asked to leave the establishment. Later that day, the video of her scandal, complete with the coffee shop's official explanation and freeze frames from the cameras, appeared on social media. The reaction was swift. People noticed not only the attempted manipulation, but also the tone with which she spoke to the staff. A few days later, the coffee shop chain put Sarah on the list of customers who could be denied service. For her, this was an unexpected result of her morning visit for coffee. Her intention to publicly teach the barista a lesson ended in a public exposure of her own behavior. It was neither a tragedy nor a disaster, but a telling moment of instant karma, when an attempt to capitalize on a scandal turned into a reputational defeat. Suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, September 2021. Mornings near the elementary school always looked the same. A few yellow buses, parents with coffee and paper cups, and children slowly climbing the stairs, still half asleep. For the drivers, these routes were worked out to the smallest detail, with a clear schedule and strict safety rules. It was at this time that 38-year-old Kelly Brown decided she had the right to intervene in a process she had no control over. She noticed that her son's bus had stopped a few meters further than usual because of a car parked on the side of the road. Kelly perceived this as a gross violation and stepped out onto the road before the children had even fully boarded. She stood in front of the bus, gesturing to the driver to turn off the engine, and began shouting that the route was being changed without parental permission. The driver, a man with 20 years of experience, remained in place and calmly explained through the open window that the stop was moved for safety reasons and did not violate any rules. This only made Kelly more irritated. She came closer, started filming video on her phone, and loudly commented that people like this should not be allowed to work with children. Several parents tried to pull her aside, reminding her that she was blocking traffic and scaring the children, but Kelly brushed her off and repeated that she has the right to stand here. As the situation escalated, traffic on the narrow street was completely blocked, and the driver, acting on instructions, notified the dispatcher and called the police. When the officers arrived, they first of all recorded the fact that the vehicle was blocked and a dangerous situation was created in the school zone. Cameras on the bus and the patrol car's dashboard camera recorded Kelly refusing to move away and continuing to scream while standing right in front of the bumper. During the inspection, it turned out that it was she who parked her car in violation of the rules, which is why the driver was forced to move the bus stop. The conversation quickly lost its emotional tone. The officers issued a fine for violating traffic rules and creating an obstacle for school transport, and also issued a temporary restriction on her staying near bus stops during school hours. Later, the Department of Education officially informed Kelly that any further incidents would result in harsher measures, up to and including a ban on personal contact with drivers and school staff. For Kelly, this morning, which began as an attempt to stand up for her rights, ended with protocols, a fine, and the realization that yelling and pressuring in a safety zone doesn't work. There was no violence or tragedy in this story, but there was instant karma. The desire to control others turned into official restrictions and a reputational label of a problem parent. A large chain hotel on the Las Vegas Strip, Nevada, November 2017. The evening lobby lived by its own rules: a queue at the reception, polite phrases, standard smiles, and an unspoken understanding that even in the city of entertainment, order is based on regulations. Martha Gray, 45, arrived at the hotel without a reservation, but with a firm belief that the room issue was just a matter of pressure. She approached the desk confidently, immediately calling herself a regular customer, and demanded a deluxe room at the price of a standard room. The administrator checked the system and calmly explained that all the suites were booked and only standard rooms were available at a fixed rate. Marta didn't accept the answer. She leaned closer to the desk, lowered her voice, and threatened to destroy the hotel's rating, claiming to have thousands of followers and know how online reviews work. When that didn't work, she raised her voice so that other guests could hear her, repeating that the staff refused to help and humiliated customers. The line behind her began to move more slowly, and several people stepped aside, not wanting to be part of the conflict. The receptionist followed protocol. He called the shift supervisor and offered Marta a standard room or help finding another hotel. This only increased her irritation. She pulled out her phone and started filming a video, commenting on every word of the employees, promising to make a loud scandal and teach them how to work with customers. The shift supervisor, after listening to the situation, asked her to stop filming in the lobby and stay calm. At the same time, the security service was watching the camera footage, recording Marta's behavior from the moment she entered. When it became clear that the conflict was only escalating, she was officially refused accommodation, citing violations of the rules of conduct in the hotel's public space. Marta did not expect this development. She demanded an explanation, threatened to take legal action, and repeated that she had never experienced anything like this. The security guards politely but insistently asked her to leave the premises. The next day, she tried to book a room in the same chain in another city, but was refused without any details. It turned out that the hotel chain's internal system allows it to record incidents of aggressive behavior by guests. Data from the cameras The administrator's report and call recordings became the basis for putting Marta on the list of unwanted customers. For a person who is used to solving issues with pressure and threats, this was an unexpected blow. A trip that was supposed to be a pleasant stopover in Vegas ended with the need to find other accommodations and the realization that reputation goes both ways. In this story, no one was physically harmed, but instant karma manifested itself in the loss of access to services she thought she had been guaranteed. The rules that she hadn't paid attention to worked just when she tried to break them. A large chain supermarket in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, March 2022. The afternoon was always the busiest time of the day, with lines at the checkouts, tired cashiers, and customers rushing to finish their purchases after work. Emily Taylor, 41, arrived at the store with an overflowing cart and the look on her face of someone who was already set up for conflict. She moved between the aisles for a long time, commenting loudly on prices and staff several times, attracting the attention of other customers. When she approached the self-service checkout, the tension became palpable. Emily began scanning the items, but she defiantly put some of them aside, saying that she was not going to pay for the store's mistakes. When the cashier approached and calmly asked her to either scan all the items or return the excess to the shelves, Emily instantly switched to a higher tone. She stated that this was compensation for poor service, that the store was cheating customers, and that she had every right to take the items back without paying. Pulling out her phone, Emily began filming a video, repeating that she was being illegally harassed and that she was going to post everything on the internet. Several customers stepped aside, not wanting to be near the conflict, but the camera recorded every word. The cashier, acting on instructions, called the manager and security. The security guard approached calmly and explained the rules again, offering to resolve the situation without involving the police. Emily refused, continuing to film and insisting that she was being provoked on purpose. The surveillance cameras above the cash registers had already recorded the moment when she deliberately did not scan some of the goods. When the manager arrived, he clearly stated his demand: either pay for the entire cart or call the police. Emily replied that she was not afraid of anything, and that it was nothing that would be forgiven. The police were called immediately. The patrol arrived quickly, and the conversation turned from emotional to legal. Officers watched the camera footage, listened to the explanations of the staff and Emily herself, who continued to talk about her rights and a conspiracy against customers. The facts were obvious: deliberately unpaid for goods, refusal to comply with the legal requirements of the staff, and public disorder. The incident was formalized as petty theft. Emily was issued a summons to appear in court, and the store officially banned her from all its branches in the region. The court hearing took place a few weeks later and did not last long. The video footage from the cameras and her own video became the main evidence. The court imposed a fine and mandatory community service. For Emily, this was an unexpected ending to a scene she had perceived as a fight for justice. An ordinary trip to the supermarket ended up with court documents and an official ban, and the video she shot to put pressure became evidence against her. It wasn't a tragedy, but an example of instant karma, when the desire to get something without rules turns into consequences recorded on cameras and in court records. The online space that started as a regular Facebook group of a housing association became a source of constant tension for residents of a small neighborhood in Orange County, California, in 2020. Formally, it was a closed community for discussing parking, road repairs, and HOA meetings, but in reality, the group was controlled by 44-year-old Diana Lewis. She did not hold an official position, but she behaved as if she had complete power over her neighbors. Diana posted daily threats of fines, wrote humiliating comments, and openly hinted that she was connected to the board. She took any other view as a personal insult. If someone tried to object, Diana responded with public ridicule, posting names, addresses, and even photos of houses, accompanied by accusations of breaking the rules. Several families tried to ignore her, but the pressure only increased. Diana's comments became more aggressive, writing late at night, demanding explanations, and threatening to seek official sanctions. Some of the residents began to save the screenshots, initially for themselves, not realizing that they would be needed as evidence. The situation changed when Diana published a long post with the names of several neighbors, accusing them of financial fraud and violations without any evidence. This post was seen not only by members of the group, but also by people from the outside, as someone accidentally made it public. A few hours later, the post went viral with screenshots, and the reputational consequences affected not only the recipients, but also Diana herself. One of her neighbors turned to a lawyer, handing over a complete set of screenshots for several months. The investigation revealed systematic harassment, public insults, and disclosure of personal data. The HOA, which had not previously intervened, was forced to officially respond as the conflict moved into the legal realm. Diana was invited to a board meeting, where she was offered to voluntarily cease her activity in the group and delete her posts. She refused and stated that they are just afraid of her. The case was referred to a civil court. During the hearings, the lawyers presented dozens of screenshots, timestamps, testimonies from residents, and the very rules of the platform that she was violating. The court recognized Diana's actions as a form of online harassment. The decision banned her from administering or moderating any HOA communities, from contacting individual residents directly, and ordered her to take a conflict management course. For a person who had believed for years that the online space had no consequences, this was a cold shower. She lost not only her influence, but also the trust of her neighbors, who now perceived her not as a protector of order, but as a source of problems. There was no shouting in public places or calling the police in this story, but there was another form of instant karma. Words written without control came back in the form of legal restrictions and a complete loss of informal power. There are no accidents or tragedies in these stories, only people who were convinced that yelling and pressure gave them an advantage. Each case shows a simple thing: the rules work until someone decides that they do not exist for them. That's when the system responds. Instant karma doesn't always look harsh, but the consequences are tangible: loss of work, access, trust, or reputation. These 7 stories remind us that self-control and respect are often more powerful than any threat. If you're interested in such analyses, subscribe to the channel and like it.